What's the quote tweet that I retweeted? An entire administration full of dogs that caught the car.
I gave up everything for this. I mean, you know,
this guy is a lunatic grifter podcaster who has been ascended to the seat of deputy FBI director, arguably one of the most powerful law enforcement positions on earth. Here's how he talks about it.
Wife is struggling. I'm not a victim. I'm not Jim Comey. It's fine. I did this and I'm proud I did it. But if you think we're there for tea and crumpets, well, I mean, Cash is there all day. We share it. Our offices are linked. He turns on the faucet. I hear it. He's there he gets in at like 6 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't leave till 7 at night. You know, I'm in there at 7:30 in the morning. You know, he uses the gym. I work out in my apartment. But I stare at these four walls all day in D.C., you know, by myself, divorced from my wife. Not divorced, but I mean separated, divorced. And it's hard. I mean, you know, we love each other, and it's hard to be apart.
But you're doing some great work. You're straightening out the FBI. You're moving buildings. There's a lot of change.
It's really, really, really funny for this guy who, again, made plenty of money just working a nothing podcaster job, being like, dude, you don't understand. It sucks. We have to start work early in the morning. I start work at, what did he say? Did he say 7:30? At 7:30, and then I leave, like, you know, in the early evening or late afternoon. Deputy FBI director. For a lot of people, this would be like the final state of their career, a long career of law enforcement or intelligence agency work, culminating in a position that'll get you written into the history books. But for him, he's like, dude, it was so much easier being a podcaster. And you people ask me why I don't run for office. There's a million answers to that question. This is one of them. It's just funny. It's just funny. Didn't Dan Bongino do a big like Twitter post recently where he explained how they're dropping the Epstein case? Or am I misremembering that? Or am I mixing it up? FBI leaders say jail video shows Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino promised to release a surveillance video showing no one entered the convicted sex offender's jail cell before he was found dead in 2019. Wonderful.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated...
By the way, to be like really, 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 really clear, okay? Because I've had this argument with chat before. I think that the contention is not that someone went in there and murdered Jeffrey Epstein, because that would be dumb. I think the contention is that somebody went in there and talked to Jeffrey Epstein, and after that conversation, he was left to kill himself, and the guards, you know, weren't recording in the cell, weren't looking there, just coincidentally, that happened to be the one time they weren't looking, and then he was dead. Which presumably they could have threatened him with a million things. That's what I think happened. I do think he killed himself, but I think the conversation from the whole Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself stuff, like the implication from some people being like, well, no, he had to have been murdered, which I don't think he was. That would be kind of hard to fake, or at least it would leave a lot more holes open. I think he had a visitor. And yeah, and he was allowed to kill himself without the guards interrupting him. That's just my guess. Anyway, yeah, apparently they're saying Epstein was alone in cell before death, footage coming Bongino. The only reason they would release footage now and wouldn't release footage before to this effect is either because it says nothing or because this administration is desperate to get people to be quiet about Epstein. Okay, I swear to God, did Bongino not write a big Twitter post about how they were dropping the case on Bongino? Or sorry, on Epstein's death? Maybe Patel? No, I'm pretty sure it was Bongino.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center...
Right. But what about that Twitter post? Can somebody find that for me? I'm looking right now. Okay. We all know that an actual investigation of the people associated with Epstein would implicate a huge number of Republicans, right? Like, Republicans have been pretending for years now that they're super invested in the conspiracy with Epstein, but it's been fake, and we know it's been fake because everyone knows that Trump and Epstein were close friends, and they pretend that they don't hear it. Like, they literally do like the na 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 na. Like, they just pretend that it's not an issue, you know, that there's no connection there. I'm trying so hard to find this tweet. No one's finding it in chat, which is infuriating me, and frankly, I'm feeling a little let down, a little betrayed. I'm not finding it. I'm getting frustrated. Is this it? Did I find it? Okay, here we go. I haven't done any media interviews to this point because I want to keep your attention on the work. I don't work for myself anymore. I work for you. But it's important to relay to you that what we're doing and the media can be a tool for that. That's why we chose a long-form interview with Maria Bartiromo for our first interview. I hope you saw it. That was what we just saw a clip from. If you missed it, here are some of the questions that were asked and answered. Yes, we're moving the FBI headquarters out of the Hoover building. I was asked about some of the details surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein case. I have reviewed the case. Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. There's no evidence in the case file indicating otherwise. I'm not asking you to believe me or not. I'm telling you what exists and what doesn't. If new evidence surfaces, I'm happy to reevaluate. What I think, in my opinion, I think the reason Republicans continue to push the Epstein conspiracism for so long, despite it obviously leading to Trump, is that it was a convenient magnet for retard conspiracy grifters. But once they actually entered the government, there was no meat to those bones, because now that they control the FBI, they immediately run out of excuses as to, like, why they haven't released the info. Remember, the DOJ did that, like, part 1 of 4 Jeffrey Epstein intel drop, and they released information, and the information they released was classified files that had previously been declassified. They literally rickrolled people on the documents, and they brought, like, right-wing Twitter posters to show up and hold binders that were empty with, like, Epstein files part 1 on them or whatever, you know? And remember how, and this is maybe a deeper cut, but I do remember this. Remember how for a while there was this pervasive myth in the right-wing Twitter sphere that Democrat-aligned members of the FBI were found deleting files in the office? Right when Trump won and took office, they were saying, like, oh, we found there were Democrats hastily deleting files. And the implication to that was that the Democrats were trying to, even though, like, no prosecutions came out of that because that would be a crime, the implication to that being, like, they're trying to eliminate the Epstein logs or whatever. But I think they've realized there's absolutely no meat on this bone anymore, because, again, any real investigation of, because the real question, by the way, is not did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself? It's why the have there been no criminal charges brought against the hundreds and hundreds of Jeffrey Epstein associates that we know exist and are out there? Like, there is no way the FBI did not, in their raid on Little St. James, find concrete proof of many powerful people f***ing kids. That's I don't think that's a conspiracy at all, by the way. Like, that's obviously, like, why would they not? Jeffrey Epstein, he had his little black book. We know for a fact Epstein liked surveilling the people that he invited to his island. We know for a fact that he did this as, like, a power broker play to try to get control over people. So they should have access to huge swaths of information on powerful people f***ing kids, probably recordings, if not that, at the very least stuff worthy of opening an investigation. Why won't they open it? Because Jeffrey Epstein knew a lot of people. Like, that's it. It's obviously the reason why. Like, it's a leverage thing. Like, you could use it as leverage in some cases, like what they're doing now with Cuomo, what they did with Eric Adams, or in a broader sense, right? You just, like, you kind of have to ignore it, because once you open the book on that, like, okay, think for yourself. What happens if the FBI goes, okay, we're just going to prosecute the Democrats who went to Little St. James. Here's videos of these Democrat politicians and so on and so forth, kids or whatever. We're going to bring them to trial. It's going to be a huge spectacle. What happens day one when they're brought up to testify, right? Exactly. They implicate everyone else, which is presumably why they pressed Epstein to kill himself, you know? So now that they're in a position where they can't do anything with this conspiracy, even though they're now, like, have access to that information, I think they're just trying to bury it. They're just like, nope, never mind, there was nothing. In actuality, the Jeffrey Epstein case was entirely about whether or not he killed himself, not about the hundreds of people he must have, like, had, you know, close collaboration with, right? No, that's what we were really curious about. It wasn't actually meant to be a broader investigation of the topic, you know, the associations he had or whatever. And now, I guess, in a like big final move, in an effort to kind of close the book on this fake conspiracy, they're releasing video footage of him alone in the cell before his death, which, so you had a camera pointed inward? Will the video include a video of his suicide? Does it look outside the prison so you could see whether or not people were talking to him? What is this? My thought is that it's AI. That would be my guess. If they release something, it will fit into one of two categories. It'll either be meaningless and banal and real, or it'll be AI, and the goal of it will basically be to say, please stop emailing us about Epstein. We don't care. You get me? Wait, isn't that illegal? Using AI? Have you seen what the Trump government has been doing? Have you seen the Maha report? We'll talk about that next. Didn't they originally say the cameras were turned off? Yeah, but that could have been a lie by either government. To be fair, right? Like the government, I'm not gonna make the argument that the FBI under Biden would not be untrustworthy on this. The Epstein stuff implicates everyone in government to an extent, not like just the Trump administration. No, to have a camera in a jail cell? I don't know. I don't know. The real conspiracy is still plausible. I've got bad news, man, which is that unless it's being used specifically to like blackmail people, a lot of the information pertaining to Epstein has either been destroyed or like either under Biden or Trump or will be destroyed. Because if this information is politically useful but also universally destructive, they would just destroy it. They would have the FBI just burn all those files, all the evidence that Epstein left. It's possible the only reason we even know about the Black Book is because that information was leaked before the higher-ups made the decision to liquidate the evidence. Does that make sense? Like, we have tons of info on Epstein, but a lot of it is just, you know, there's the Black Book, of course. There's a bunch of testimonials on Epstein specifically. And also a lot of stuff got like stricken from the record or sealed in the record because it doesn't necessarily pertain to the people who are being prosecuted. For example, in, what was it, 2008? Or was it an earlier one? I forget the year of the case. There were files that were declassified, or sorry, unstricken. They were unsealed, that implicated Trump in his association with Epstein, but they weren't released initially because the case was against Epstein. So they didn't want to release information that could be damaging to Trump when the case was against Epstein. That's not super uncommon for really high profile cases with big moguls like this, but it's possible that's happened a lot. And they just made the decision, like, we're just gonna like let what's out there stay out there and we're gonna scrape down everything else. You get me? Do you think I'm being super conspiratorial right now? Because I feel like it's really obvious that the FBI picked up a ton of info at Little St. James. And I think it's really obvious they're choosing not to move forward with it because it would implicate too many people. Like, maybe that's conspiratorial in the literal sense of there being a conspiracy, but I think it's also like insanely obvious. That's just my guess. Like, why is Bongino acting as though the Epstein conspiracy has been about whether he killed himself when the broader topic has been why the fuck hasn't the government gone after the people who they know collaborated with Epstein? I mean, I think the answer is obvious, but, you know, whatever.